5 years ago, the western sky burned red with fire. Bill Maceda, an 8-year-old boy, lost his entire family to a gang of raiders, surviving only because a stranger pulled him from the ashes. That same night, Ryan, a seasoned gunslinger, was betrayed, framed, and sentenced to 15 years in prison. 2 strangers, 1 oath, blood debt must be paid in blood. Now, they stand together by a wagon, carrying $200,000, where the past and vengeance forced them into an uneasy alliance. 2 gunmen, 1 goal. The cold wind howled across the barren plains, carrying the scent of dry earth. Under a pitch-black sky, 3 men huddled around an old wooden cart. The wheel creaked under the weight of $200,000 in cash and gold bars, the spoils of the Redstone Bank heist 2 days prior. A small fire flickered between them, their wary eyes scanning the darkness. Jack, the eldest, sat closest to the fire, clutching his tattered coat. His raspy voice broke the silence. "Keep your eyes open. They're out there." He tossed a whiskey bottle to Pat, the younger man, whose eyes darted nervously. "Warm yourself up," Jack sneered. Pat took a sip, his spurred boots clanking as he shifted position. "Perfect," he muttered. Jack stood, dusting off his coat. "I'm turning in." He disappeared into the darkness, his voice trailing off. "Pat, stay sharp." Pat scowled, muttering under his breath. "He sleeps warm while I freeze to death." John, leaning against the cart with a rifle in his lap, growled, "Shut up. Pass the bottle." Pat tossed it over. The 2 fell into silence, eyes locked onto the surrounding void. The fire crackled, mixing with the distant whine of the wind. Then, Pat's head snapped up, his eyes darting across the night. His voice wavered. "Did you hear that?" John snorted, his tone dripping with sarcasm. "No. Getting paranoid again?" But at that very moment, snap. The sharp crack of a breaking twig echoed through the silence, cold and crisp. Both men froze, fingers tensed around their triggers, eyes widened, scanning the darkness. The wind died down. The night air thickened, heavy enough to make each breath audible. Then, from the shadows, a figure emerged. Slow, deliberate steps, unwavering. The firelight flickered against the hem of a long coat billowing in the wind. A revolver gleamed in his right hand, raised. His voice was low, firm, and cold as a death sentence. "It's me, Ryan." Pat panicked, scrambling for his gun. His voice stammered. "How are you here? Don't move!" But 2 gunshots rang out, sharp as lightning, drowning his scream. Pat collapsed onto the dirt. A bullet through his chest, blood soaking into the parched ground. His spurred boots clanked one last time before his body convulsed and stilled. John fell next, a single bullet to the forehead. His eyes froze wide in shock, fingers slackening as his rifle slipped from his grasp. Ryan stepped forward, the firelight cast shadows over his weathered face, his steel-cold eyes scanning the scene. He crouched by the cart, running his fingers over the stacks of money, murmuring, $200,000, not bad. He picked up a gold bar, weighing it in his palm before dropping it back into the crate. His gaze swept the darkness, as if expecting someone. Not far away, on a low, grass-covered hill, Bill Maceda had watched it all through an old pair of binoculars. He inhaled sharply, fingers tightening around the cold metal. Down in the valley, the flickering fire illuminated Pat's lifeless boots, boots that had been burned into Bill's memory. 15 years ago, those same boots had stomped across his family's blood-stained floor. That night, the thunder of hooves filled the air. His father, thin, graying, stood in the doorway, voice trembling with rage. "Get the hell out, you bastards!" A gunshot. His father crumpled, blood pooling on the wooden floor. His mother ran from the kitchen, clutching a small knife in shaking hands. "I'll kill you!" A man yanked her back by her hair. The rip of fabric, a scream, laughter, then slice. The knife slashed across her throat. Blood sprayed. "Burn it! Leave no trace!" Flames roared to life. Thick smoke filled Bill's lungs. He choked, gasping for air. Suddenly, a firm hand grabbed him, pulling him from the inferno. A deep, raspy whisper. "Run, kid." Bill's heartbeat thundered in his ears. It was them. He set the binoculars down, rising from the grass. A small figure, yet unshaken by the night. Pat's boots were the only proof left of that night. 2 men, 2 deaths. Their paths were about to collide. He took a step down the hill, each movement heavy with the weight of vengeance. The wind howled, sending his coat flaring behind him. Under the firelight, Bill faced Ryan, 10 paces apart. Ryan looked up from the money, revolver loose in hand. "Go ahead, kid. Name first." Bill gripped his gun, voice steady. "Bill Matsuda, why'd you kill them?" Ryan chuckled, cold as stone. "Ryan, those rats sold me out. 15 years in prison. You?" Bill looked down at Pat's lifeless body, the steel-toed boots gleaming under the firelight. His chest tightened. "These men, they killed my family. Those boots, they're just like the ones from Matsuda." Ryan, still seated by the fire, tossed in a dry branch. The flames flared up, casting deep shadows over his weathered face. "Matsuda? 15 years ago?" Bill clenched his gun, stepping closer, his voice shaking with anger. "Were you one of them?" Ryan sighed, his gaze drifting into the past. "I used to run with that gang, Walcott, Kavanaugh, and a few others, but I left before they hit Matsuda. I don't kill for sport. As far as I know, only one kid made it out alive." Bill froze, his breath heavy. "You?" Ryan nodded, his voice rough. "I pulled that kid out. By the time I got there, the smoke was thick. I dragged him out, then took a knife in the back. They turned on me, pinned the Matsuda massacre and the Redstone heist on me. I rotted in prison for 15 years. Bill turned away, gripping his gun, his mind a whirlwind. The man before him was both a savior and ghost from his past. "Where are they now?" Ryan stood, dusting off his coat. "Kavanaugh runs a casino in Holly Spring. Walcott owns a bank in Linden City, the other I don't remember." Bill lowered his gun, his voice firm. "Want to come with me?" Ryan smirked, his eyes cold. "Revenge is a dish best served cold." Bill turned his back, his tone dry. "I don't care. Blood for blood." They worked quickly. Pat and John's bodies were tied to the wagon, covered in dry grass to hide the evidence. Bill checked his gun. 12 bullets, each a promise. Ryan grabbed an extra revolver and a handful of scattered rounds. 2 horses neighed in the darkness. Bill mounted a black stallion, his eyes burning like embers. Ryan climbed onto an old brown mare, adjusting the saddle strap before glancing at Bill. "Let's ride, kid." They left the open plains, the firelight fading behind them. A temporary alliance forged, savior and survivor, bound by fate. Holly Spring appeared, wooden shacks by a noisy saloon. The 4 aces, Kavanaugh Satchel Casino, glowed with oil lamps. Bill and Ryan tied their horses under an oak, hats low, and stepped inside. Bill's boots clacked on the worn floor. The crowd inside, the drunks with flushed faces, a few weary prostitutes in torn dresses, and Kavanaugh's men, glanced their way, but no one spoke. At the center of the room, Kavanaugh lounged at the high-stakes table, his plump frame squeezed into a shiny suit, hair slick with pomade, swirling a glass of red liquor. He laughed, voice booming over the din. "Come on, bet big, don't be shy." But when he spotted Ryan stepping forward, his smile froze, his eyes widened. "Ryan? Damn, it's been a long time. You out already?" He set his glass down, the liquid trembling slightly. He forced a smirk, but his voice had lost its confidence. Bill stepped closer, his boots clicking on the floor. His voice was low, steady, final. "Bill Matsuda, you were part of the Matsuda massacre, weren't you?" Kavanaugh paled. His hand trembled, and the glass slipped from his fingers, shattering on the floor, wine spreading like blood. "Kid, you got the wrong man. I don't know you." Ryan moved beside Bill, his tone dripping with cold amusement. "But I know you, Kavanaugh. You sold me out after Matsuda. Time to settle up." Bill didn't wait. His gun flashed. A shot rang out. Kavanaugh screamed, toppling from his chair, clutching his bleeding leg. "Wait! $15,000! I'll pay. It's in the safe behind the bar." Bill shook his head, eyes burning, pressing the barrel against Kavanaugh's lips. "You can't buy your way out of this." Kavanaugh's men drew their guns, but Ryan was faster. 2 fell before they could take aim. 1 slammed against a table, sending playing cards flying. Bill pivoted, dropping another with a shot to the chest. The last 2 ducked behind the bar, firing wildly. A bullet grazed Bill's shoulder, tearing his coat. Ryan took down another. The last man hesitated, then tossed his gun to the ground, hands raised. Bill turned back, pinning Kavanaugh against the wall, pressing the barrel to his chest. "Where's Walcott?" Kavanaugh gasped, sweat trickling down his bloated face. "Linden City. He's there, with the city's money. Please, I don't want to die." Bill stared into his eyes. He saw fear, but deeper than that, he he saw a smirk from 15 years ago, a face watching as his mother's throat was slit. Bill cocked the hammer. "Where's Walcott?" "You'll die if you go there," Kavanaugh stammered. The burning ruins of Mesita flashed in Bill's mind. That smirk. A gunshot thundered. Kavanaugh slumped, blood pooling beneath him. Ryan glanced at the body and shook his head. "You're reckless, kid." Bill didn't answer. He wiped his gun on his sleeve. As they stepped outside, the sheriff of Holly Spring was waiting, shotgun leveled. "Slaughtering men in the middle of town?" Ryan smirked, unfazed. "Self-defense. Ask around." The sheriff glanced inside, sighed. "Get the hell out before I change my mind. Holly Spring doesn't need more trouble." Bill and Ryan mounted their horses. As they rode off into the night, the lights of the casino faded behind them, leaving only the scent of gunpowder and blood drifting on the wind. Linden City rose with tall buildings from the railroad. Walcott, owner of Walcott Bankers, posed as a model citizen in a white suit. His vault hid $1 million in stolen funds. His heart, the blood and betrayal from 15 years ago. Bill and Ryan hitched their horses outside a small saloon on the town's edge, where the air reeked of cheap beer and the raucous laughter of drunken men spilled onto the dusty street. They crossed the bustling road, where wagons creaked and pedestrians hurried toward the bank. A 2-story building with weathered white walls and gleaming glass windows reflecting the merciless midday sun. Bill slammed his fist against the heavy doors, his voice cold as steel. "Open up." A hulking guard stepped out. A scar ran from his forehead down to his cheek, his hand resting loosely on the revolver at his hip. "Mr. Walcott doesn't see uninvited guests. Get lost." Bill clenched his fists, his eyes narrowing into slits. His voice dropped, each word laced with venom. "Tell him Bill Mateta is here to settle the blood debt from Mesita." The guard sneered, his gaze sweeping over Bill with mockery. "Blood debt? Mesita? You think he wastes his time remembering every backwater dump he's burned through, kid?" He slammed the door shut. The heavy locks clanked into place, sending a cloud of dust into the air. Ryan grabbed Bill by the arm, pulling him into the shadows beneath a withered cottonwood tree. "He won't see us. Don't waste your breath. We need another way in." Bill exhaled sharply, eyes burning with determination. "Tonight." They waited until the sun dipped below the horizon, and Linden City flickered to life under the dim glow of oil lamps, turning it into a sea of wavering light. Under the cover of darkness, they slipped into a narrow alley behind the bank, weaving through piles of rotting trash and discarded crates. The air was thick with the stench of sewage and spoiled food. Ryan pulled a knife from his belt, wedging the blade into the wooden back door. The lock snapped with a quiet crack, and the door creaked open. They stepped into a pitch-black hallway, where the scent of polished wood and stale cigar smoke clung to the air. Bill's boots echoed against the marble floor, each step counting down to judgment. Ryan moved like a shadow, gun drawn, eyes scanning every corner. They pushed open Walcott's office doors, a grand room lined with expensive oil paintings, a massive wooden desk drowning in paperwork and ledgers. Walcott sat behind it, swirling a glass of red wine, his smirk gleaming under the crystal chandelier. "Rats," he murmured, not even surprised. "How did you two scurry in here?" Bill stepped forward, voice colder than the grave. "You murdered my family in Mesita." Walcott shrugged, his smirk unwavering. "Mesita? Can't say I recall. Some forsaken dust bowl, I'm sure. But if you came for money..." He pulled open a drawer, pushing a thick stack of cash across the desk, the crisp bills whispering against the silence. $10,000. Take it and walk away." Ryan's voice was low, deadly. "We came for your life." Walcott's fingers discreetly pressed a button beneath the desk. The shrill wail of the alarm split the air, rattling the glass panes. The doors burst open. 10, maybe 12 men stormed in, clad in dark coats, gripping rifles and revolvers, their faces twisted with drunken aggression. Gunfire erupted. Bullets tore into the walls, wood splintered, smoke filled the room. Bill dove behind the desk, firing 3 quick shots. 3 men collapsed, blood staining the marble, bones cracking against the cold floor. Ryan, hidden behind a bookcase, fired twice. 2 more dropped, their skulls painting the white walls in gruesome strokes, but they were outnumbered. A bullet tore through Bill's shoulder, hot blood seeping into his shirt. He gritted his teeth as Ryan shouted, "Get Walcott!" Walcott laughed, shoving aside a bookshelf to reveal a hidden passage. He grabbed a heavy briefcase of money and bolted. The old door jammed halfway. He yanked at it, and the case got caught in the gap, spilling wads of cash onto the floor. Bill leaped over a fallen guard and fired. The bullet struck Walcott's left shoulder, sending him staggering. Blood soaked his immaculate white suit as he snarled, "You bastard!" He wrenched the briefcase free, kicked the door open, and stumbled into the dark passage leading to the back alley. Ryan fired, the bullet smashing into the stone wall inches from Walcott's head. But the banker disappeared into the shadows, his frantic footsteps fading. Bill surged after him, but a burly guard lunged from the corridor's corner, swinging a fist into his jaw. The impact sent Bill crashing to the ground, his head striking the floor, vision blurring as blood filled his mouth. The tang of iron coated his tongue. Ryan shot the brute through the chest, the man collapsing instantly, but more guards flooded the hall. The air filled with gunfire, smoke, and the acrid scent of burning gunpowder. Bill staggered to his feet, shooting down two more, but another man tackled him, knocking his gun loose. Ryan dragged him behind an overturned bookcase, firing again and again, but the guards had sealed every exit. Outside, the bank alarm had drawn a swarm of townsfolk and a patrol of uniformed lawmen, rifles at the ready. The crowd jeered. "Hang the thief!" Walcott emerged, bloodied but triumphant, cradling his wounded arm as he played the perfect victim. "They robbed my bank. They killed my men. String them up." Bill, hands bound, was dragged toward the town square. The noose tightened around his neck, the mob roaring for blood. He struggled, pain lancing through his shoulder, but his gaze remained sharp, unyielding even in the face of death. From the shadows, Ryan fired 2 shots into the air. The deafening blast silenced the crowd. "He's innocent! Walcott is the real thief!" A moment of hesitation rippled through the mob, but the lawmen leveled their rifles. "Drop the gun or die where you stand!" Ryan smirked, slicing through Bill's ropes with his knife. He hissed, "Run!" Chaos erupted. The crowd surged. Gunfire cracked through the night. Bill wrenched a gun from a fallen guard, shot down a soldier blocking their path, and bolted. Ryan covered him, each bullet clearing their escape. They dashed into the alley, mounted their waiting horses, and spurred them into a full gallop. Behind them, Walcott bellowed, $500 for their heads! But Bill and Ryan had already vanished into the desert, their figures swallowed by the endless night, dust rising in their wake as they rode toward El Viento. El Viento emerged in the vast desert, a small village with crumbling adobe houses, roofs of scorched dry grass, and streets covered in golden sand swept by the hot wind. The villagers lived in fear under the rule of Walcott and his gang, Pedro, Paco, and more than a dozen ruthless outlaws, their bodies strapped with guns. Bill arrived first, riding his black horse through the village entrance, dust swirling in thick clouds beneath the hooves. But at the gate, a group of bandits lay in ambush, a rope stretched across the road, tripping the horse. Bill tumbled onto the sand, barely getting up before Pedro, a towering man with a thick beard and iron-studded boots, struck him down. The punch landed square on his face, blood dripping from his nose. "Tie him up," Pedro growled. The bandits bound Bill's hands and feet with thorny ropes, dug a pit, and buried him up to his neck under the blistering sun. Pedro stood above him, voice rough and mocking. "You killed my man in Holly Spring." He poured a handful of salt over Bill's face, grinning as Bill coughed violently, his eyes burning, his sun-scorched skin stinging. Bill, lips cracked and nose still bleeding, blurted out, "Ryan is at Redstone Pass, 20 miles from here with reinforcements." Walcott, standing nearby in his once pristine white vest now dust-covered, believed him. "Go. Bring me the old man. Don't let him live," he barked. The gang rode off into the desert, leaving Bill to Pedro. "Take your time," Walcott ordered. "I want to hear him scream when I get back." But Ryan was not at Redstone Pass. He arrived at El Viento soon after, riding his old brown horse through the dusty road, sand kicking up behind him. Seeing Bill half dead, buried in the dirt, he leapt down, kneeling by the pit, digging him out with bare hands, his tattered coat caked in sand, sweat streaking down his forehead. "Second time I've pulled you from death's grip, kid," Ryan muttered, voice rough with fatigue but firm. He pulled a water flask from his saddlebag, pouring it into Bill's mouth. "Drink. Don't die on me now." Bill choked, water mixing with dried blood on his chin, but his eyes still burned with undying hatred. He pushed himself up, arms trembling with exhaustion, voice hoarse. "They'll be back in 8 hours. We need to be ready." Ryan smirked, clapping him on the shoulder, his torn sleeve brushing against an old wound. "Good. Now's the time to fight." They knocked on doors, urging villagers to stand together. An old man, thin and gray-haired, shook his head. "Walcott will kill us all." Bill cut in, voice sharp. If you don't fight, you'll die anyway. Choose. A young man, eyes bright like stars, stepped forward. I'm with you. One by one, 20 villagers, old, young, even women, agreed. Ryan commanded, dig trenches around the village, 100 meters long, 2 meters deep, stack dry branches, pour oil. They worked under the burning sun, sweat mixing with dust, hands bleeding from digging into the hard earth. Villagers brought oil from storage, filling the trench, the sharp scent of fuel blending with dry sand. Bill checked his revolver, counting bullets. 10 rounds. Enough? Ryan smirked. Enough if you don't miss. I have 8. That night, Walcott returned, his left shoulder hastily bandaged, blood still seeping through. He split his gang, one attacking from the front, another from the back. Riding his white horse, a briefcase of money tied behind the saddle, he roared, "Burn the village! Kill them all! Leave no one alive!" But as they charged, Bill struck a match, the last one in his pocket. The trench ignited, flames roaring sky high, swallowing dozens of men in a fiery inferno, their screams piercing through the thick black smoke. Pedro lunged at Bill, boots clanking, dagger in hand. Die! But Bill was faster. One shot to the chest. Pedro fell, blood soaking the sand, his boots forever silent. From the rooftop of an adobe house, Ryan fired a long-range shot. The bullet pierced Paco's skull, sending him tumbling lifelessly to the ground. Villagers fought with sticks, stones, and shovels, their cries blending with the roar of the flames. In the end, only Walcott remained, standing amidst the wreckage, Garant's rouge, gun trembling in his grasp, his white vest now torn and blood-stained. Bill and Ryan closed in, guns leveled. "Masita, remember?" Bill's voice shook with rage, his finger tightening on the trigger. Walcott fell to his knees, sweat dripping, voice trembling. "I couldn't stop them. I was too late." Ryan's voice was ice. "You sold me out, and you helped kill the boy's mother." Bill stepped forward, pressing his gun to Walcott's forehead. "I remember your smile that day." Walcott looked into Bill's eyes, pleading silently, but no words came. The gunshot echoed. Walcott slumped, eyes wide open, blood pooling into the golden sand, mixing with the dying embers of the fire. The smoke cleared. Bill stood in the middle of the burning village, his empty gun slipping from his grasp, falling into the sand. His hands trembled slightly from exhaustion. The villagers gathered around, eyes filled with both gratitude and fear, whispering their thanks in a mix of Spanish and broken murmurs. A frail old woman, her eyes clouded with age, reached for his hand. "Gracias, muchacho," she whispered. Bill nodded but said nothing. His gaze was hollow. Ryan stepped forward, his sleeve torn. Dried blood crusted over a small wound on his arm. "Good luck, kid. I once wished for a son like you." He held out the reins of the black horse, his other hand giving Bill a firm pat on the shoulder. Bill looked at Ryan, his vision blurred by smoke and unshed tears. "Thank you for everything." Ryan nodded, saying nothing more. But in his eyes, there was a fleeting warmth, rare and unspoken. Bill climbed onto his horse, gripping the reins, then turned away, riding off under the crimson dawn. His figure faded into the horizon, swallowed by the golden morning light. The hatred had settled, but inside, he felt as empty as the prairie after a storm. Ryan stood there, watching. "Live well, kid," he murmured. Then he mounted his old brown horse and rode in the opposite direction, his silhouette dissolving into the swirling desert dust.